Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Austin Downbeat. This is episode 66. I can't believe it. I have such a special guest for you tonight or today or whenever you're watching. But before I introduce him, I'm going to give you just a couple people each day this week that are playing around town. Most of these folks have been on the show or are coming on. So if you haven't seen my conversation with them yet, please check it out. Let's go. August 29th, Erica Michelle is at the Saxon Pub. Courtney Santana is at Sea Boys. On the 30th, Guy Forsyth is at Sagebrush. Edwin Raphael is at Spider House Ballroom. And Walt Whitkins is at the Saxon Pub. On the 31st, Restos has their last show at their residency at Sea Boys. Wendy Colonna and Susanna Schaffel are at the Pershing. It's going to be a beautiful night. Embers is at Kingdom Nightclub. Jake Lloyd is at Sea Boys. On the 1st of September, Brian Wolf is at Vista Brewing. On the 2nd, Van Wilkes is at Ghost Note Brewing. The Selfless Lovers are at the Saxon Pub. They are going to blow the roof off. David Hamburger is at New World Deli, and Urban Heat back from their fun tour at Hotel Vegas. On the 3rd of September, Ian Moore is at River Road Ice House. And to wrap it up for the week, on the 4th, Labor Day weekend, you have Monday Night Supper Club at El Mercado South, and you have Bob Schneider at Saxon Pub. Okay, my guest today, I'm so happy to introduce him, is Brannen Temple. He is a 3-time Grammy Award winner. This man has played with so many people, we're not even going to bother to list them all out. It's just impressive A to Z, and he is impressive A to Z. We have a wonderfully deep and candid conversation about music and life, and I thoroughly enjoyed talking to him. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with the lovely Brannen Temple. Let's do it. Brannen Temple, thank you so much for coming on the show. Welcome.
Hello, thank you so much. Sorry if I'm shaking. It's not personal.
I have that effect on people, so it's okay.
All right, thank you.
I've been looking forward to this ever since I followed you out to your car. Do you remember you played with Andrea McGee, and I finally got to see you play live, and then I happened to be walking out and I saw you and I was like, hey, you got to come on my show. And I'm so
Yeah,
glad that you're here.
I so appreciate that. Thank you so much for engaging me and asking me to come on. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
You know, seeing you play was so cool. I'd never seen you play live before. I've heard so much about you, and so many people love you, and you are in this wonderful community here in the city that I call with the beloveds. You know, this
Mhm.
musical community is very loving toward one another, I think. Would you say?
Overall, yes, that's the
Yeah.
general consensus. That's one of the things that's kept me here for so long. Because even in the beginning, when I first started playing, things were really uh, were incredibly warm and welcoming. And obviously, the scene was a lot smaller.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking like mid '80s,
Mm-hmm.
and at that point, yeah, there weren't very many young people
Mm.
who were in the scene, so it was almost like probably about 10 of us who were
Wow.
under 20. That's what it felt like, and everyone else was already established and doing their thing. And so I didn't really grow up with a lot of peers per se who were my age.
Mm.
And so most of the relationships felt very, just warm, welcoming, like I said, almost mentoring in some ways. A lot of good examples, with various musicians who sort of took me under their wing or just gave me opportunities to grow, you know?
Hmm. And to
Yeah.
play with them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of it. So Austin has always had that sort of generous feel. And now as I'm moving on in age, I have a birthday this weekend.
I
And
know.
oh yeah.
I did.
And
I
so
literally, I was gonna open with that and say happy almost birthday,
oh,
but I got too caught up and I didn't say it. So happy almost birthday.
well, thanks. I started talking, and but to wrap that statement, or opening statement, is just to say that now that I'm one of the, I don't know, older guys in the scene,
Elders.
it feels like anyway. Um, I'm happy to share what I have, and share my story, and be of help to younger musicians. So
Yeah, yeah, I think that's wonderful. It's definitely something that we aim to do on this show is to have conversations that really provide value for people. I love kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit and
mhm,
digging into, the humanity of what you do and how you do it. So let's
mhm,
jump in a little bit. One of the things that came to mind when I was thinking about you this week was self-expression. What's your relationship being a drummer with your, I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, your need and desire for self-expression when you're playing? What's your relationship been with that as you've evolved as a player? Um, and with the types of people that you play, because you don't only, I mean, you play different types of music, right? There's like jazz, which feels like a whole other world, but then probably roots in what, other, like even if it's rock, maybe there's some shared, roots there. But
mhm.
as far as you, Brannen, expressing yourself, how do you do that as a drummer where you're just, are you more limited because you don't get to sing and move your body? Are you kind of back there? Like, what's that what's that evolution for you? Because I've seen you play. Let me just interrupt and say one more thing. I've seen you play and you are so expressive. I watched you probably the most when I saw you with Andrea
Mm.
because there's so much eye contact and you're watching and you're doing and you're smiling and you're like, you are creating so much. You are that engine. So there
Yeah,
is so
well,
much expression there.
you know what, the drummer's role is many things, and it really just depends on the musical scenario. So that no one thing is sort of, there's no one answer to
Mhm.
that. So sort of to break it down in terms of, you ask uh, the differences between maybe when I began and the evolution of my growth. When you start out, you're really wanting to just sort of explore and express, all the things that you hear. In the beginning, when I first started, I guess when people would come to the house, it was an easier way for me to speak,
Mm,
would be to sit behind the drums and
mm,
have people actually come to me in
nice.
the room, as opposed to me having to sit in the room and communicate. Well, how are you doing? How you doing in school? What subjects do you like? You know, when adults are trying to gather intel or engage with children,
Mm,
there are very specific questions that they're going to ask. And, if they're creative, then they will, elaborate, or if they see something that they can relate to, then they'll elaborate. But at my house, the drum set was the way to speak for me
mm,
personally.
love that.
And so it broke a lot of barriers. And so I learned that really early. So self-expression was just reaching people, so however I could do that, if it was through the funk, you know,
Mm,
because that was some of the first music that I played, of course, being gospel music and concert music and jazz music and those sorts of things. Just being influenced by whatever was going on at home, or I'm an MTV baby as well. So I saw
me
day
too.
one when MTV came on TV,
Mm,
and and when households could have cable,
mhm,
that's where that's my that's where I was. So I was able to absorb all the things that were on TV, even if I didn't like them. I watched them anyway. And then I came to find out later in life that those things were part of my DNA. Like if I would hear,
Mm.
uh, not to say that I didn't like it, but if I heard like a Tom Petty song or something like that later, I
Mm.
realized, oh man, I kind of absorbed that,
Mhm.
as a 12-year-old or as a 10-year-old. I already knew uh, the DNA of that music.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the self-expression part just comes from one's own will to
Mhm.
share, and I like to think of myself as, selfless or as selfless as possible, as I'm making music with others. I'm not playing like a ton of drum solos, or I'm not speaking out of turn. And what I mean by that is like a lot of young drummers tend to, we call it overplay. So, it's to bring more focus on me, the
Sure.
drummer, focus on the person that's doing this thing now,
Yeah.
where I grew up at a time where, if someone was speaking, let's say the singer, well, I'm there to support that. Or the saxophonist, I'm there to support that. The
Mm.
pianist, I'm there to support that. And those dynamic ranges could vary. If it's a guitar, that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be loud. If it's a flute, that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be soft. It just depends on the context
Mm.
and the involvement and my interpretation of that, so that the most heartfelt, or whatever the information is coming from, there's all these chakras, right? and
Mhm.
and that's involved in the music as well. Sometimes you can hear music specifically that touches you here.
Mm.
Sometimes it's specifically touching you in the heart.
Mm.
Sometimes you feel it in your gut, and sometimes in other places. And so you can direct that, as well. The longer I play, the
Mm.
more I'm in touch with how to project,
Mm.
and send messages, because that's what I am. I'm a messenger, and I don't create the messages. The messages come through me, and there may be a vehicle playing behind a blues singer, or a jazz vocalist, or a trombonist, or an organ player, or whatever the instrument is. The vehicle doesn't really matter, but it's my job to help shape that experience.
Yeah.
So I've learned to develop that over the years, and to take it very seriously.
Yeah. And I'd
Yeah.
say you've quite mastered it. Do you feel like you will ever master, or what is that for you specifically in your relationship with playing music? I would imagine there's no real destination, but where are you along your trip
Well,
now?
really the destination again is just to, you know, again, to give people what they need. People
Wow.
come to music. Uh, we, in terms of species on the planet, we're obviously not the only species that embraces uh, melody
Hmm.
or music, or at least we interpret the understanding of birds, to say, for instance,
Mm.
as a way to interpret, the turning of the seasons, the communication of 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 love, or the expression of nature. So it's up to the musician to understand that nature as well, and not necessarily be hell bent on expressing only the technical aspect of things, the rudiments of things. Of course, you must be well suited, but beyond that, it's really valuable for the musician to find the heart speak, you
Mm.
know, and to find how to take that, and find out who they are, and give that in the most genuine way in the moment. And the more experienced you are, the more you can listen to musicians and understand kind of where they've come from, if they're
Mm.
telling the truth,
Mm.
and and where they're going. and it's a great journey. I'm very grateful, very thankful, and if there's anything else I can add to that, it's just being yourself as a musician. So that's the way you know how to find what to express, how to express. I can't tell another drummer's story.
Right.
I can be influenced by the greats, you know, uh, of the music. There's no shortage of
Mhm.
greatness, in any genre, any given day. Even the young folks that play music now are also doing their thing. And again, there's just no shortage. They have way more tools than I had. I had MTV. They have YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
I had BET. VHS
Hmm.
and Beta and those sorts of things. Eventually, the CD, came out, and I
Hmm.
spent so much money buying like stacks of CDs, coming out of music stores, Old Tower Records,
I remember, yeah.
and many other little pop-up stores that are no longer in existence.
When you think of the greats, as far as you're concerned, and who you think is great, are they that perfect mix of technique and heart? What makes them great to you?
Well, that really just depends, because as long as I feel it,
Mm,
I
yeah.
feel the truth.
Oh,
What is the truth? The truth, I can't define that, but
right.
I know it when I feel it.
Yeah.
I know it when I see it. I know it when I hear it. And you don't even have to be so discerning. I think that musicians get caught up on, what is hip and what is not, and
Mhm.
what is good and what is not. When the layman is just going to hear it and they get it or they don't. And then
Right.
if they get it, that's what's good to them. And
Yeah.
so it validates um, all expression. You know what I mean? So it doesn't have to be there doesn't necessarily have to be this line or this barrier between it. Like it can
Right.
be a direct feel. You can be walking down the street. I heard some of the baddest music and baddest musicians in my life from subway musicians.
Yes.
You know, People
Yeah.
I didn't know who they were. Or being on the road and you walk into some random club and you're not expecting anything, and you're mesmerized by someone's outpouring,
Mhm.
from their heart. You see their skill, you see that some people are obviously skilled. And then information can hit you in a different way. Once again, I can see a band of jazz musicians play, and uh, it's all correct,
Right.
but it's hitting me here.
Right.
You know,
Not.
it's not hitting me here. Or like I saw a singer on the cruise the other night. I just came back from basically we were in Greece and then we did a Mediterranean tour. I was playing with Ruthie Foster and it was on the Joe Bonamassa Blues at Sea cruise, I
Yeah.
believe. Anyway, so there was many artists that were wonderful, and I was able to catch a few, but I caught this one, and it wasn't really hitting me. Like nobody in the band, is really floating my boat, and I don't mean that with any offense. It's just it's me. It's my experience. I can own what moves me.
Yeah.
And then they went to a ballad, and I was in the middle of a conversation about to leave, and the young lady who was singing, I felt like, okay, this lady is really killing. But for some reason, I wasn't the context of the vehicle that she was expressing before. I feel like either the musicians weren't giving it to her or she was
Mhm.
not really feeling it until that moment. And then
Wow.
when I heard it, I was like, oh yeah, okay. Now she's talking to me.
Yeah.
You
It's almost like it's a catching a frequency in a way, you know? It really is. Like,
that's an amazing word choice. Thank you for
yeah.
that. And that's what it is, vibration,
Yeah.
frequency, and all those things that are really and truly universal. Universal law. Even rhythm is a universal law. It has nothing to do with beats per minute, or how good I can play around the drum set. The rhythm of seasons that
Yeah.
happen without our uh okaying them.
Right. It
You
just
know,
is.
the way that the days flow from beginning to end, and they just are cyclical. That's rhythm. that's a
Mhm.
that's the law of rhythm. Rhythm just happens around us whether we are tending to it or not.
It's funny. I use that word a lot, and I use it a lot this time of year when the kids go back to school.
Mm,
And I always say, I love the rhythm of back to school. I love the
mhm,
rhythm of fall. I love the way the weather changes at that time. Like I think of that as a rhythm, and that's what I call it.
right.
And it gives me like a deeper conduit to connect to it with. So I'm really staying in the moment during this time. I mean, you have kids. I have two teenagers. It's like we're in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's the best ever time, but it's also there's a lot of meat on that bone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. There's a lot. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I love that. I love calling it my rhythm, and each
Mhm,
season brings a different rhythm, and then you get to go, okay, we're diving into this one. But there is
right.
something so primal and something so I think one of the things I was just talking to my friend Eric about this is I think it's one of the things that I really love is like a shared experience, and seasons and rhythms that are natural is a shared thing. We all go through that together. Music, when we listen to it together, is a shared thing. And I wonder if that's one of the reasons why it makes it so powerful because
Well, that
sharing
is
it.
indeed one of the reasons why it makes it so powerful. It's something that we can all relate to. It's a part of our experiences
Mhm.
in humanity.
Yeah.
With music, I mean, people are born to it. People are made to it. You know, they're conceived. People die to it. You know what I mean? It's like when you have funerals, when you have ceremonies,
Mm,
services, graduations, party time,
yeah.
um, getting through life, things that can remind us of good and bad times and beyond. Music, for it to be such an important frequency and an important happening. The way that the musicians are treated when it comes to streaming or payment for services,
Mm,
is a whole nother conversation, and it's really sad. It's really upsetting, you
mhm.
know. And I think it's sort of flippantly and very casually looked at. It's like where any Tom, Dick, and Joker can grab a guitar or beat on something and make a sound, right? And you think this, and so throughout history, it has been sort of cheapened. But when it comes down to it, each musician that I know has spent so much time
Mhm.
in a room, just trying to figure it out and trying to find the depth of their soul. People are speaking through their higher selves
Mhm.
when they sit behind their instruments or when they present music. And so whether you connect with that frequency or not, that's on you. But it does not take away the value, you know.
Yeah, I couldn't agree
And,
more. I
and-
talk about this a lot. I will never take for granted what you do and the level of vulnerability that's always up on that stage with everyone standing on it. I see so much music, and I will never ever, it's just like when I see an airplane in the sky, I will never not be amazed that there's an airplane in the sky. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? Or and it's the same with musicians because just even though the people write songs, make music, play music because it fills their soul, and hopefully that is the first reason why they're doing it, right? Just
Mhm,
to be their authentic self and to do what they're meant to do. They're also giving it to us and
mhm.
they're sharing it with us, and I feel like that is the most one of the most courageous things I think a person can do. and
I
and,
couldn't
and I
agree
agree
with you
with you.
more.
It needs to be reciprocated, and I couldn't agree with you more. It's a huge conversation and how many places that needs to happen. But I just am always in awe of you guys,
Yeah.
like,
Well,
wow.
we need people that like yourself and the fans and people that recognize and want to just honor that. Just take a moment, just take a second. We don't have to, you know, well, I'll speak for myself. I don't necessarily have to live lavishly and have people throwing rose petals and all that kind of stuff at my feet to feel respect. I
Hmm.
mean, I have enough self-respect to feel that whether anybody wants to give it to me or not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, in the marketplace, here we go. Now we're commodifying
Hmm.
something that is a natural occurrence or a rhythmic occurrence or a spiritual occurrence or a spiritual gift or a musical gift, all
Yeah.
of these things. So then it gets a little tricky how this person can make more than what you're making, or this person can make less than what you're making, and you're thinking, wow, how are either of those things even a truth? you
Hmm.
know so that's a whole nother conversation, but ultimately, uh, uh I guess it's up to the musician to find their own worth and not really measure that uh based on anyone else's goals for them, or anyone else's measure of success, or anyone else's measure of failure, or whatever that is, because we as musicians, understand me, you can say what you want. I think worse or better of myself than you could ever do. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Most musicians, that, oh, we're our own worst critic,
Hmm.
and trust me, the biggest obstacle is the self. It has nothing to do with anyone else. And so once you understand that and you can try to traverse that territory, then then you can maybe find a little more light, a little more uh, traction.
Yeah.
Maybe the audience is widened, or they expand or spread, that sort of thing. So, but yeah, no one can really tell me, you know, about me, either good or bad. I mean, it's good to hear feedback, but I know when I did a good job, and I know when I need to get in the shed. I know what I need to. I know what I need to. I know when I need to work. When I need to kick it up.
Yeah.
And that's always the case. So that will never end. There's
Mm.
never a finish line. You
Yeah.
know, it's really even difficult for me to understand. Um, but again, it's everyone has their own walk. I was going to say, when people make the choice to do something different other than music, and maybe music has served them in a way, and they can release it and let it go. There's a couple musicians in my realm right now who are struggling with the crossroad, doing something different, or are they able to continue on? And maybe maybe there has to be something put away in order for something to be gained. I'm not in their shoes. I don't know. you
Mm.
know I've not reached that point, and maybe I never will. you know
Yeah.
you know
Do you have any advice for other musicians out there that are kind of, I mean, it is quite a balancing act in the sense that you guys are doing like walking a soul's journey in a lot of ways, but you're doing it down like Wall Street. You know what I mean? It feels like this sort of like dichotomy between what a musician really goes through and does and puts out. It feels very sacred and like a soul's kind of thing, but yet you guys do it in a marketplace and it feels very contradictory. And there are a lot of
Thanks.
musicians out there that kind of struggle with like, this is what I meant to do, this is what I want to do. How do I, how do I do it and survive and stay sane, in the marketplace part?
Taylor Swift is no better than me.
Hmm.
I'm no better than Taylor Swift. I mean, I have my own sense of of value of worth, and there are people that this is universal, so what makes that walk unique?
Mm.
I mean, every part of it makes it unique, and how does one deal with that? That's a tough one, because you have to have there's no real game plan.
Mhm.
There's no, you know, go to school, get a job in a factory, you
Yeah.
know, jump on AI, and all of these things that have happened over the years. There's no, you know, okay, if we make a $80,000 music video, that's going to put us on top, or if we sit in our bedroom and make all these TikToks, that's going to put us on top, or if we uh, if we open up for the Rolling Stones, that's going to put us on top. If we are the Rolling Stones, you
Right.
know, that's going to blah blah blah. Um, Advice is just you have to live your own life. That's all it is to it. There's no, you can have. Uh, it's good to have mentors. It's good to have examples. The big bro, the big sis. Musical uncles, musical aunties. To view different things and see how people do what they do, and it's often where that's where we find the inspiration, but then also sometimes you just got to be quiet and figure out where the inspiration is going to come from. Ask that of yourself, ask that of the universe, ask that of whatever spiritual higher powers and connections that you feel. Um, but nonetheless, you cannot stop. Like, you can't stop writing and figure you're going to get something that you can't get unless you're songwriting, or you can't stop practicing and all of a sudden you're going to get you
Mhm.
know a job or a gig with someone who obviously needs someone who's technically proficient.
Mm.
So you have to keep walking the walk.
Mhm.
Talk you Don't talk it, you got to
Mhm.
walk it, you got to do it. you
Mhm.
know Pick it up,
Mhm.
pick up the guitar, pick up the drumsticks, pick up that pen. And
Mhm.
nowadays people can write with AI and do those sorts of things. And I really hope that, but the way I view it is much like any other tool. The piano was a tool, that was shunned in the very beginning because it
Really?
was looked at as a synthesizer. It was a synthesis of sound
Mm.
that had not yet been done. No one had heard that sound. So in fact, people thought that it was from the devil. It was shunned by the Roman Church.
Wow, I didn't
That's
know
the
that.
that's the piano. And so, fast forward some, several centuries to the drum machine. And when the drum machine came out, in the late 70s, when it was more prominent. I mean, I guess there'd been sort of some rhythm boxes and various things in the early 70s, but no one was using it they were using it as a tool to maybe keep time or maybe play along with it, that sort of thing. It was old Sly Stone records. You can hear the rhythm box and Andy Newmark or Greg Errico playing along with those things. But it wasn't until the late 70s, early 80s where drummers feared for their jobs. They were
Mm.
like, oh no, this drum machine is going to end us, you
Yeah.
know, and especially in the studio scene where, and if we go back to the 80s, you could hear the drum machine, that sound is all through the music. And so,
Mm.
but what ended up happening is it was only a tool. And so drummers utilize, learn how to program, how to sound like the drum machine, and
Mhm.
then flip it and play it better than the drum machine could ever do it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So AI is very much the same.
Yeah.
Do not be afraid of it. I mean, I think for the first few months, I was like, ah, here we go, it's some old bull. But the
Mhm.
truth of the matter is that, we, the creators, are destined to always take the tools and use them to our advantage. So
Mhm.
although myself, I personally not understood the how I can utilize that in my uh, in my writing or my life or but it's here.
Mhm.
It's here to stay. So technology is something to embrace.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've lived
So
long
if anybody has any suggestions, hit a brother up. Let me know how I can do that. I'm being very sincere when I say that
Yeah.
because, um, you know, you're never too old to learn and to gather new intel, and to be able to download,
To
so that I can give more of the frequencies that might be might be desired in the now, in
Mhm.
today's market, in today's music. And I don't mean marketplace as much as I mean what people are seeking,
Right.
you know.
Right. It's also kind of interesting too. I think you and I aren't that far apart age-wise. I too was an MTV baby. It's the best.
Mm.
I love it. Um, but things also cycle back around. Like,
I'm
oops.
sorry about
Oh, that's okay. Things cycle back around, like cell phones. Yeah, they're great, but now everybody has one. And like, I have a landline. I got a landline a couple years ago because I wanted my kids to actually be able to hold a telephone. And, it's the old school kind that you have to like push the button, and that's our home phone number. And,
that. And I'm
um,
sure that worked in Snowmageddon.
right.
That-
Yeah, exactly. And so, there is always in so far in my 47 years of being alive, I've seen the appreciation come circling back around, I think. So yeah, technologies are great and they come and they're flashy or scary. And then we settle in because we're humans and we're so wired. I know for me, I'm so wired for that kind of I love the long way. I love the truth. I love the primal thing. I love the thing that I'm going to have to do with my hands, or I don't always want to take the easy way, you know?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and I'm trying to, train my kids that way too, but we'll see how they turn out.
Yeah. I think this younger generation, it's like even racially, it's like I grew up with uh, you know, I put it to you this way: the first president my kids knew was Obama. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I did. It wasn't like
Sure.
year after year after year of seeing one
Same.
particular thing
Yeah.
growing up. Their generation was like, oh well, yeah, of course you can do that. And whether or not politically that's true or not, it's what they see, it's what they're used to. And
Hmm.
so the same thing goes for the musician and taking on, or the human, just taking on new technologies or the technologies of the day or the ideals of the day. Those things. There's always going to be a a pulling from the past, and
Hmm.
and take from the now, and grabbing a hold of what's coming, in the future. That's always going to be the case. So your
Yeah.
kids are going to be fine. My kids are going to be fine.
Yep.
It's going to be great.
Yeah. What do you have going on? So you just got back from Greece, which by the way, I know you probably so tired and I so appreciate you coming on. I didn't realize you were
Yeah.
just coming back. What's
Yeah.
happening on the horizon for you? What do you have cooking?
Well,
Or are you
the
just
main,
going to take a break?
well, I'm not. I don't know how good I am at taking breaks.
Mm,
I've never really had one. Since I started playing, that's what I've done. And we're
mm.
talking. Oh,
I mean, I could do the math.
over. Well, over. Well over 40 years of playing music.
Yeah.
So having said that, I'm working on is me. I'm working on I'm always working on my sound
Mhm.
and how things feel. What are my intentions when I pick up, when I sit down behind the instrument? What am I hoping to say? And even at that, at best, it is still only a fraction of what I'm capable of,
Mm,
and I'll never be able to exhaust any of that, you know, as long as I continue to feel it, desire it, inquire about it. It's like music is also it's not a statement as much as it is a question
mhm,
sometimes, because we're having to find, what is this thing called life? What is love? What is, you know, who am I? What is self?
yeah.
I am what? I am who? You
Mm,
know what I mean? So these things, as long as we keep the hope, that's what that is. That's the drive, the ambition, the will, the human nature, you know, all those things. So what's next on the agenda is it's just that, and so the vehicle doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I'm playing a solo concert, which I've done, you know,
mhm,
uh, whether that's a performance or whether that's a drum clinic, or again, that's for teaching, or those sorts of things, or if it's a performance with in a duo setting
mhm.
or with an orchestra.
Wow.
Just this past May, I was able to perform an opera and play with a couple of different symphonies.
Wow.
And the second of which was really just the symphony and drums. So dig that.
Wow.
uh, Along with spoken word and a wonderful opera singer, but it was just around the drum set. So so it doesn't matter what the vehicle is. It could be me and a you know guitar player, which I have an upcoming project there called Boom Chank.
Nice.
Still working with Ruthie Foster,
Mhm.
you know, uh, Red Young, Brannen Temple Express, uh, Andrea McGee, like you said, and
Mm.
have some upcoming shows with Vanessa Collier, and the list goes on and on and on. I have worked with so many
I know.
extraordinary musicians, and I have worked with so many extraordinary musicians. I'm not one to talk really and say, "Ah, yeah, I did this and that," but I definitely have a a a well stacked and stamped passport and resume.
Yeah.
So it all speaks for itself, and there's no need for me to really talk about it. People
Yeah.
can look it up, you know,
I
if
know.
they
I
so
was I was like, I could start rattling off, but my God, I mean, we'd take the whole interview to just list out all the people you've played with. It I was gonna ask you earlier because there seemed to be from an outside perspective, listening to you talk and also just noticing your way, seeing you kind of in live and noticing the way you see things, approach things, and just kind of feel. I was going to ask you if there are any like metaphors that you feel drum brings into your life, but I feel like maybe there's no space between drums and life. It feels like there's no room for metaphor because you really feel like you're coming across as that it's all one really beautiful approach to the same kind of animal. You know what I mean? Like,
in a way, I mean, I hope to bring healing to those who within earshot, but I also hope to heal myself, through the music, and it happens. I can be in a not the best of moods or whatever, but all I have to do is just look at a drum, and that it has meaning, it has depth to me. But the drum itself is inanimate. you know it can do nothing without the person behind it. So
Mhm.
and the intentions, with which that person is playing. And so I just hope to continue to delve down that, or follow through that understanding, and again, bring healing. That's what I see is most needed.
Mhm.
Even when people hear the music, I can see that they got what they came for. Hopefully, they got what they came for.
Yeah.
Hopefully they and maybe they didn't even know that they needed it. I mean, I've too have been to shows, and be the first to say, man, I didn't even know I needed that. You
Mhm.
know, and recognize the spark that it gave me, or the will that it gave me to move on. Sometimes all you need is just a little bit, you
Mhm.
know, just a touch,
Just a
to
little
move.
kindling, just a little
Mhm.
kindling. Yeah.
To move to the next thing, and to spark a new idea or a new feeling, or more compassion, less complaining, uh, more love, you know, or
Mhm.
just more hope, more thread, to get to the next thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what music should be. And so, with that having been said, it's like, I'm always grateful when people can recognize that in the individual musician. So thank you. And also just music at large. So anybody who comes to a show, buys a record, and nowadays just buys a song, whatever, listens to a song, and recognizes that work or that path or anything that touches them. So I salute you all. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Well, you certainly have shined your light here tonight, and I'm so grateful to get a chance to hold up a microphone for you tonight and let people hear your wisdom and your story, and just to get a sense of who you are and how you are and how you see what you do. It's so powerful. And if you haven't seen Brannen play, I mean, it
Speaking of
really
see what
is.
I do, sorry, I
It,
was blocking the light.
it's really.
You can't block your own light, baby.
I mean, have we learned nothing tonight, Brandon?
I've learned nothing. My
I
God.
gotta go. No, but you are so fun to watch. And there was a moment when you played with Andrea that, I mean, all of you on stage were you're so good together that
Mm.
it moved me. I got a little caught off guard and I had tears in my eyes. And do you ever just get
Mm.
tears in your eyes and your brain doesn't realize that that's what's happening? It's like happening on a much deeper level. That's what happened to me that night.
Oh yeah.
And it was like, I love that. I mean, you can't make that happen. It just either happens or it doesn't. But you guys
No.
created magic in that room that night. It was just, that's what's so cool is that you're not, when you go to a show or when you go see music, like, and I went by myself. I like going out and just kind of doing things by myself, but you don't feel like you're by yourself at all.
Yeah.
It's
You
so
know that
beautiful.
that's amazing. Thank you for saying that. I learned a long time ago that there are three things that you cannot fake.
Mm,
And so you can't fake being born. You can't fake your birth,
right.
right? Um, you can't fake goosebumps.
Yeah.
And so what is that? That either comes from, being cold, or just that the feeling,
Yeah.
like you said. And you can't fake your own gut, your own instinct. That's your beacon. So when I hear of people being moved, it's speaking directly to you. It's speaking directly to one of your centers, a part of you that is specifically wired to you, your frequency. It hits your channel, and
Yeah.
that's something that can't be faked.
Yeah.
So I guess I would put that in the goosebump slash gut,
Yeah.
category.
Yeah.
But it also could be a birth. It could be a rebirth, of being catapulted in a different direction. I have experienced in my life a performance or two or three where someone was thinking about ending it all, and
Mm.
they saw me play and came up to me personally and said what how they were moved to just live another day. And that's real. That's no one. why would someone make that up just to stroke my ego? That makes no sense to me or to anyone else. So music is important. It's a high value, and I'm grateful that I recognize that. So
Well, I'm so grateful that you do what you do, and you do it with such a wonderful light and attitude and intention. Like you
mm,
really think about this stuff, and that's obvious. And I just appreciate you sharing that with us tonight. Thank you
yeah,
so much for coming on.
and I know I sound serious, but I can be pretty goofy too. So, but we were talking about other things, so
Yeah.
but nonetheless, you can put all of that into the music. All that is available to the human spirit,
Mhm.
can be expressed inside the music. So, I don't know when this airs or what's going on with this, but
Next Tuesday.
next Tuesday.
Next
Okay.
Tuesday, people will get to see it.
Well,
Mhm.
we'll see you then, everybody.
Yay. All right. Well, thank you, Brannen Temple, for coming on. It's such an
Wow.
absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me. And I realized the whole time I was looking down, I had it flipped where I was looking at you down here and my face was big. Like, why am I looking at my face big? Okay, yeah,
You can see
yeah.
me.
Sorry,
Now
tech
you know who you're talking to.
technology,
We'll get
embracing that.
AI to do the next. We'll let AI handle the next interview for you.
Can that happen?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll say goodbye. Thanks everyone for watching. We will see you next time. Brandon, thanks for coming on, and we will see
All right.
you soon.